And welcome in everyone to the Week 7 episode of Craze's Corner. We got a lot to discuss today, so we're going to start off with some news. The Browns are having terrible injury luck. Case Keenum is going to be starting for them on Thursday night. Baker obviously is not going to be playing due to a shoulder injury. He hurt it earlier on in the season, and he re-aggravated it last week. So we'll see how that plays out. They're also going to be without Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And Odell is questionable, so we'll see if he suits up or not. But the Browns are definitely going to need some people to step up if they want to be able to beat the Broncos. Some more injury news for the Ravens, who have been struggling this year with their injuries but have persevered. Ronnie Stanley has been placed on season-ending IR with an ankle injury. He did have surgery, so they're hoping to get him back fully healthy for next year. And the rumors of the day, we got the Deshaun Watson to Miami situation. Rumors have come out that the Dolphins are extremely interested and they're trying to get something to happen as early as this week, but if not before the trade deadline. And with that, the Tua might have to find himself a new home. Rumors have been Washington might be interested in making a trade, but a team like the Steelers or the Saints should even look into that. But what do you guys think about this whole situation? Will Watson even play this year? Let us know what you think using the media app. It's a virtual press conferencing app. It's by far one of my favorite apps to use. I really recommend you guys check it out. It's on the App Store and Google Play. All right, now let's welcome in our guests, Will and Jeff. Thanks for joining.
Hey, Zach.
And let's get into some wide receivers who have disappointed this year. We're going to be breaking down eight or nine wide receivers who have really disappointed your fantasy team. They haven't really lived up to their draft expectations, and we're going to let you know whether you can move on from these guys or not. The first three guys I actually have on one team. Luckily, they're my third, fourth, and fifth wide receiver, but these are guys who we all have in some leagues where we actually have to make these decisions as well. So we are going to give you our input on what you should do. We're going to start off with probably the most disappointing wide receiver this season so far has been Allen Robinson. They've had the quarterback issues starting with Andy Dalton and then Justin Fields. He's currently the wide receiver 54 in half-point PPR leagues. He's on the field all the time, but the targets just haven't been consistent. He's been averaging around 5 targets a game, which for a receiver as great as Allen Robinson is actually really bad. I believe that he would be able to make do with whatever quarterback he had throwing to him, as he's proven before, kind of like DeAndre Hopkins did in Houston. Allen Robinson has never really had a great quarterback throwing the ball to him, whether it was in Jacksonville or even in the Bears or in Chicago before this. But this season, things just don't seem to be clicking. For me, I can't drop Allen Robinson.
No.
I think there's still a chance, he can turn things around. But if you compare him with another running back or wide receiver and try and upgrade at one position, that's something I'd look into. Or if you can upgrade your tight end or something like that to make it worthwhile, because I still think people, the name of Allen Robinson has that draw effect where people are like, oh, you're going to give me Allen Robinson? Okay. So that's kind of where I'm at with Allen Robinson. But if you can't move him and you can't get any value back, just hold on to him. I think he can only go up from here as Justin Fields and him continue to build connection now that Fields is going to be starting going forward. What do you guys think about Allen Robinson going forward?
Well, I guess I'll start. I was out on him when I knew that Andy Dalton was his quarterback, for one. And then I was just hoping, maybe when Justin Fields got in there, that maybe they could, put something together. But you can see there's a clear chemistry with Mooney, between Mooney and Fields rather than Robinson. So I got a feeling that Robinson's not even going to be around too much longer. They might even put him up on the trade block. Who knows? He might go ahead and start demanding to be out of there. So I would definitely be trying to not necessarily sell high, maybe sell mid. Like you're saying, I mean, the only thing he's really got going for him right now is the name. That's pretty much about it.
Well,
I was going to say, any different takes on this, Will?
Well, I think he's going to get traded. honestly. And, maybe Carolina sends Robbie Anderson to Chicago and Allen Robinson goes to Carolina, right? Just change the scenery because both players are struggling. But, if he stays with Chicago, fantasy playoffs, right? Those last 4 games for Chicago, depending on your playoff schedule, is Minnesota, Seattle, the Giants, and then Minnesota again. Yeah. So, that's not a bad, maybe a nice sleeper for the last 3-4 weeks for your playoff push, depending on your league format. So, and if he gets traded, if he went to New
England, his value can only go up if he gets traded.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a team he goes to where his value lessens.
Yeah.
Saints? The Saints, I think his value goes up. He'll be him and Michael Thomas together.
Yeah.
I think Winston can still sling the ball. Even if he goes to a team, he could go to the Packers. I don't think that's a realistic trade because of the interdivision, but if he goes to the Packers, it's great. I think they're probably, if they're going to trade him, they'll probably try and trade him to the AFC. A team like the Colts could use him. The Patriots, as you said, even a team like the Dolphins. There's really any team in the AFC. The Ravens could use an upgrade at wide receiver, and Allen Robinson is going to bring that to you. But let's move on to another guy who I actually picked up off of waivers after the DJ Chark injury, Laviska Shenault. I thought he was really going to emerge into that wide receiver 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that hasn't happened. He did have something like 11 targets last week, but the drops against Miami were insane. He could not catch a ball to save his life. I think you have to keep Shenault. I don't think you can put him on the waiver wire, and I don't think you can get anything for him in trade value right now. I'll let you jump in here, Will.
If you're in a 10 or 12 league team, is he really worse than what's on the waiver wire?
I think he's going. I think he's got the high ceiling there.
Yeah.
Being in Jacksonville, obviously they're on bye this week, so if your bye weeks are terrible and you have to make something work, maybe he's the guy that's got to go. But other than that, like I said, 10 targets last week. He had 6 receptions for 54 yards. I think the touchdowns will come eventually. Jacksonville looked like they were starting to get their stuff together against Miami, so we'll see how that pans out. But I'm not comfortable dropping Laviska Shenault, and I wouldn't recommend you do either. But like I said, bye weeks, especially this week with a bunch of teams being on bye, sometimes you don't really have the option. Jeff, what are your thoughts on Laviska Shenault?
Very disappointing. To me, droppable only because the only person I'm really touching in that offense is my man Robinson. That's about it. And it took a minute for him to go ahead and actually turn his season around. I think all of those guys are cursed by Urban Meyer. So I'm not touching them. Although, they did, finally get their first win. Did look a little bit better. But, Marvin Jones has been available as well. So if I'm picking between the two, I'm going with Marvin Jones just because he's got a better track record than Shenault. But I'm disappointed because I thought he was going to have a pretty good season, especially when Chark went down.
Yeah.
So
he's
on a couple waiver wires right now, and I'm actually just leaving him right where he is, man.
That's fair enough. Let's move on to another wide receiver, a big name wide receiver he struggled with injuries so far this season, which is kind of something you could have seen coming. But Julio Jones, haven't really seen too much out of him. He had that amazing catch last week, but obviously now he's dealing with the hamstring injury. I was watching that catch live, and I was like, no way they ruled that out of bounds. And then they talked for about 15 minutes like the refs seem to like to do this season. They conferred and realized that he did catch it. But I think Julio's a guy you can't drop Julio Jones. He's a guy you might be able to capitalize on the name, just like an Allen Robinson type situation. What do you guys think about Julio Jones?
I love Julio, and I thought for sure he was going to thrive. But when you have Derrick Henry, you can be like, I'm about to hand it off to Derrick Henry. They can put 8 guys in the box. They can put 12 guys in the box. They can take extra guys off the bench, put them out there. It's not going to matter with Derrick Henry, and I think that's what's hurting Julio right now. Other than the health issues as well, but right now, I think Vrabel is just like, if I don't have to throw the ball, I'm not going to throw the ball. I'm just going to hand it off to this guy. A.J. Brown is starting to come around too. So I don't know. Maybe later on, if, they do start really trying to shut down Derrick Henry, which doesn't seem like it's going to happen, they'll be forced to throw the ball some more. It would be a little bit not smart of the offensive coordinator to go ahead and try to work him in a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Teams are going to be trying to stop Derrick Henry more, even though they know they can't. So he should be open. And he's, that's just my thing. I've been in love with Derrick Henry. Everybody was screaming regression, and that was the only thing that kept me from picking A.J. Brown or Julio Jones, is because I'm like, they're still going to feed Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and like you said, they can't abandon Derrick Henry. He's always going to see the touches, and with the injuries that Julio's been dealing with, he's already missed 2 games. Currently, the wide receiver 69. He's kind of putting up similar stats to what Allen Robinson is doing. Like, they're great wide receivers. They're just not really in the situation. And in Julio's case, he can't stay on the field. And that's a problem for both the Tennessee wide receivers. What are you doing with Julio Jones if he's on your roster, Will?
Probably not moving him because I like the end of their schedule. Jaguars, Steelers, Niners,
Dolphins.
At the Dolphins during championship week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then their last game's at the Texans if for some reason you're still playing the last week. But I also think there's a lesson to be learned there, right? That it's kind of fool's gold. You get these guys at the end of their careers and teams trade for them and they think it's going to, I'd rather have had the draft pick. Just be honest. I mean, I think Julio's a great, obviously Hall of Fame wide receiver. For Tennessee, that was, they gave up a little bit of capital for him. And, what could you assign in free agency and what could you have done? I get it. It was a good name, a good draw, but I don't know.
Yeah, it just hasn't seemed to pan out.
Right. Just think about this. If you were Julio Jones and you have the choice between going to Arizona like A.J. Green or going to Tennessee, I think he would have been, if he would be over in Arizona, I think he would be just doing way better than what he's doing right now. Yeah. If that's what it is, just knowing the team that you're going to.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I don't know how well he'd actually be doing in that offense because they got a lot of mouths to feed with Hopkins being there, and then you've got to run the ball sometimes, so Edmonds and Connor. But yeah, I think he'd rather be in Arizona with Kyler Murray than Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill. Let's move on to a guy who I'm trying to buy low on everywhere. I think that his value has dropped drastically, and come the end of the season, when his quarterback comes back, this guy will be able to win you some weeks in the playoffs. I'm talking about Tyler Lockett. I know Jeff, the diehard Seahawks fan, is going to love that. With Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett is not startable. He should be on your bench unless you absolutely have to start him. Don't put him out there. But once Wilson comes back, I think he will go back to being a top wide receiver. And I think the DK Metcalf, is now a better wide receiver than Tyler Lockett, even though Tyler Lockett's a better route runner. And that's why I think Geno's going to rely on DK Metcalf a little more, which we've seen already. And Tyler Lockett kind of fell into the abyss because what makes Tyler Lockett so good is the connection he has with Russell Wilson. So I think once that comes back, he's going to start going off and he's going to have those big games again. But for now, I think Geno is going to have to kind of ride that DK Metcalf. He's bigger, stronger, taller, faster. And for a guy who's not an amazing quarterback, that's kind of what Geno Smith's going to have to rely on. But are you guys comfortable starting Tyler Lockett right now?
A little bit. Only because Geno does try to target him. I think that's the issue. He does not know how to necessarily throw to Tyler like Russell does, like you pointed out. And with DK, it's just I'm just going to throw it up and hopefully DK pulls it down.
Yeah, you throw it up to DK, he's going to catch it.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. I think knowing that Russell isn't there, the OC and Pete Carroll are just saying we're going to go back to just trying to run the ball. That's why Alex Collins, basically had 20 rushes, which worked out. Now they got Rashad Penny coming back, so they're going to go back to really trying to run the ball, mainly throw it to DK. So if you're in a spot, to where you have to have a starting receiver in, especially with the bye weeks right now, I would probably start him this week. But, yeah, going forth, there's other guys I'd rather put in my lineup than Lockett, which I hate to say.
And are you trying to buy low on Lockett, knowing that Wilson's coming back? If you can, because Lockett right now, he put up 5 points, 4 points, 8 points, and 4.5 points. So Lockett owners are kind of upset. So are you trying to buy low?
Yeah, I would. Only problem is I got DK most of my
That's fair enough. Don't really want to pair.
I would, yes.
Yeah. You don't really want to pair those two wide receivers together. But if you can get them in a league you don't have DK already, that's something I'm definitely exploring. What about you, Will? Any thoughts on Lockett?
So what? Wilson's out 3 more weeks?
Yeah.
So they got their bye that 3 weeks from now. So we're talking about 2 home games, Saints and the Jaguars. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, especially we're entering bye time now, right? So who's on my roster and who can put up decent numbers when I don't have my whole team? I'll take my chance with Lockett right now. And, I think the Saints will play heavy on Metcalf, and the Jaguars are the Jaguars. So if he's going to have a good couple of games with Geno Smith, it's going to be these next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think he'll continue to disappoint. He'll see the targets, but not the catches. So if you can get a better option off the waiver wire, if you can get a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones, a guy like that, I think I'd rather start over Tyler Lockett for now. Let's move on to the Bengals wide receiver situation. Obviously, Jamar Chase has been amazing, but T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, especially last week when the Bengals seemed to have everything figured out, both of them kind of disappointed. If you have to ride one of these guys for the rest of the season, are you taking Higgins or Boyd?
I'm going to go with Boyd.
I hate to say it. I've got Boyd on one of my teams, and while Chase was out, or while Higgins was out, he was great. Burrow cannot sustain all 3 of these guys, which is the issue, and it's starting to look like Boyd is the odd man out. At least
until Higgins gets hurt.
Teams. What's that?
That's until Higgins gets hurt.
Well, yeah, if he gets hurt again, and then that's the thing. And then if teams decide to roll coverage over to Chase, then it's Boyd all day. But right now, when you got all 3 of them out there, I'm sitting Boyd, and I'm trying to go ahead and trade him. Now, if Higgins gets hurt, then then I will have missed out, because I'll miss Boyd then. But right now, I'm trying to see if I can sell high on him.
Yeah, for me, I think I'd rather have Higgins the rest of season. And I think Tyler Boyd's actually a guy you can drop until an injury in that happens, because they got Jamar Chase, who's got the connection with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon, who's going to see targets out of the backfield, as well as he demands the ball in his hand. And I think Higgins is going to be the number 2. And I think Boyd is then going to be like the 4th or 5th guy in the Cincinnati Bengals offense. And I don't think that's he might have some PPR value as we go down the stretch, but they've got some tough matchups, especially they play the Chargers, the 49ers, the Broncos, the Ravens, and then the Chiefs. So not great matchups coming down the stretch. So, for me, I think you can drop Boyd. Keep Higgins on your bench for a bit. I think he'll have his games. He'll be a guy you can kind of put in with all the bye weeks that are happening. But I wouldn't want to have either of these guys on my team. Really, if you could get value for any of them, you've got a massive Bengals fan in your league, trade him away. Let's move on to a big offseason signing, Kenny Golladay with the New York Giants. Kenny Golladay, for me, is a guy you can drop. I say that, and I fully believe it. I think Sterling Shepard is the number 1 wide receiver on that team. And Kenny Golladay might be the number 2 when he's healthy, but he's not healthy. He's been dealing with the hamstring injury. Got it in camp. It's come back up. Hamstring injuries tend to linger. I'd rather have Tony right now than to have Kenny Golladay. I'd rather have T. Higgins and Golladay. I'd rather have any of the guys we've talked about today than Golladay. Until he can prove to me he can stand on the field and be healthy, I don't want him on any of my fantasy football rosters. What about you guys? Are you guys just completely leaving him?
I'm with you, Zach. Look, I'll take KJ Osborne right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, because Galladay's at best my bye week sub in for
that will be hurt and won't end up playing.
Right.
So I'd rather have a wide receiver with upside. Look, I'm not high on any of the Giants outside of Barkley if he's healthy, because he'll get touches. But I
think the same goes for Sterling Shepard. He's going to get the touches, playing out of the slot, and being that he is the senior wide receiver on this team, but he's still shifty. Kind of see him in like a Julian Edelman type role with the Patriots.
Right. And look at their quarterback play. And I'm not down on Daniel Jones, but they have 5 TD passes this season and 6 interceptions combined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I think Sterling Shepard sees enough targets to be fantasy relevant in some sort of PPR format. But I don't think any of them really have the touchdown upside. Golladay hasn't scored a touchdown yet. You want to throw your thoughts in here, Jeff, on Kenny Golladay?
That's my thing. It seems like Daniel Jones can only hit who's ever playing slot. Look at Kadarius Toney when he was in there. Look at Sterling Sharp. Sterling Sharp.
Sterling Sharp.
Sterling
Sharp coming back.
I went back in the time machine, man. But Sterling Shepard when he was in there. The ball goes to the slot receiver, but now I don't even think Daniel Jones as well. Yeah. I don't even think he should have been in there last game, man, because he had a horrible game, and there's no other explanation than you throw him in there after the dude just had his bell rung, man, the week before. Yeah. So that's the other thing, like Will said, the quarterback play as well. Daniel Jones is not trying to throw the deep ball to anybody. So, Slayton, Golladay, all those guys can stay on the waiver wire.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. I agree. Stay on the waiver wire. We'll move on to the next guy, who I think is a guy that if he plays this week, he should be in your starting roster, Odell Beckham Jr. I like him a lot more with Case Keenum at quarterback. I think Case Keenum comes in. I think he'll play good. They don't have pressure on Case Keenum. And I think Case Keenum played really well for Minnesota before. So I think he can do similar again. Odell, I think Baker tries to force the ball to Odell too much, but I think Keenum's going to be able to get him the ball without forcing it and making those big mistakes that Baker tends to make when getting to Odell. So if he's playing this week, which obviously we don't know right now, but if he plays on Thursday night, make sure you're starting Odell. And we'll see what happens. I think he'll see 10 targets, and I think he could possibly score. So what do you guys think about Odell?
I'm just wondering if he's going to be healthy to play. Yeah. Personally, I got Donovan Peoples-Jones, so I hope he does. But if so, he is somebody that I don't know what it is. Just him and Baker don't seem like they've been able to get that chemistry going. It's always been Jarvis Landry instead. But with Case Keenum, I think you got something there, Zach. I think you could be right. He would be worth a play, but it's if he's healthy. That's the thing. You just don't know about Odell either, man. He's one of those guys that when he gets injured, it takes him a minute to get back, and then get back to being the Odell that people know. So that's my only thing. I don't know what Odell is going to show up if he's out there.
Look, with Keenum coming in, and if the injuries, the rest of the team looks like it's the running backs are out, they're pulling somebody out of the stand to play running back tomorrow night. Is it tomorrow night? I think it's tomorrow night, right? Honestly, I'd be looking at their tight ends just as a side note, because Keenum's a savvy guy. And he's good for these games like this to come in off the bench and put up numbers. But he's also kind of a check down guy sometimes. And if the running backs aren't there, I would be thinking, right?
Felton is going to have a great week.
Great game. Yeah.
Especially if they're
Felton played running back at UCLA and was very successful.
Wide receiver.
So
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he's more the running back in this game than anybody else.
Because he's really good at catching the ball in the backfield too. So if they get behind early, I think he could see more touches than Johnson in this game. But let's move on to a guy who some people I've seen kind of worrying about after this past week. He'd been relatively good. He's currently the wide receiver 39, so not great, not bad, but he wasn't drafted high. We're going to talk about Devonta Smith for the Eagles. He's coming off a 4-target, 2-reception game, which are his season lows for both. I think he's a guy you can start going forward, in my opinion. They have a really, really good end of season schedule. Washington, New York, Washington, and then hopefully you're not playing fantasy football in Week 18 because that is a terrible idea. But then Dallas. So those are 3 really easy matchups so far. He's got kind of a rough patch. They're playing the Raiders this week. So I think he's a guy you might be able to buy low on if the Devonta Smith owner is kind of weary. He's had 3 games so far under 5 points in half-point PPR leagues. So maybe you can feel the guy out, be like, yo, like, how are you feeling about Devonta Smith? If he says he's a little worried, make your trade offer because I think he will continue to see the targets. Like I said, 8 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, then 4 targets. That's really the outlier for me. So I'm comfortable with Devonta Smith if he's on your roster, and I think you should be comfortable with him as well. And maybe try and make a trade for him, try and get a deal. And while we're talking about trades, just real quick, not talking about him today, but Miles Sanders might be a buy low candidate. I don't think he's going to cost you anything to get, and they have a really easy schedule coming up. I think they have the easiest schedule for running backs, and that also equates to the easiest schedule in football. They have the weakest strength of schedule, which I think benefits both these players. So yeah, trade for Sanders and try and trade for Smith if you can. If he's on your roster, keep him and start him.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I like their end of year schedule. I think he could be a good wide receiver 3 that you could get cheap.
Yeah.
I think both the guys should be able to flex.
Yeah, I have him right now, and that's the kind I'll use him in spot games and play him.
Yeah, bye weeks
matchup. Yeah, because that's the thing. So he has actually exploded one week. I forgot what week that was, and I was kind of upset I didn't play him.
Played really well against Kansas City at 17.7 points.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I sat him that game.
Because he just come off of a 2 and a 4 point.
Exactly.
Week.
Exactly. It just depends on what the game script is, from Sirianni. If he's looking to run Hurts or if he's looking to actually have Hurts try to pass down the field, and if he's not targeting his wide receivers. Actually, Zach,
now
that's
Ertz is gone.
Good thing. Now that Ertz is gone, more targets could be going his way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, that is a reason why to go ahead and hold on to him or try to trade
and get him
low on.
Because I think both Sanders and Smith I think they're going to see – they have to get Sanders more involved in the running game to start off with. You can't win games without running the football.
That's the only thing that scares me about Sanders is that are they going to put him in or are they going to try to slide Gainwell in there? So
remember the Hurts is leading rusher on that team right now.
Yeah, that's not – unless you're Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, that's not something that you can sustain throughout a season and win games.
Yeah.
So Sirianni needs to get his shit together, and they got to fix that offense.
Cursing, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, I believe in Miles Sanders so much. I believe in the talent, but the coaching staff has absolutely ruined him this season. So if you can get him for low, because I think anyone who has Sanders right now, they're like, this guy's I think they're kind of contemplating, what do I do with this guy? Do I drop him? Yeah. So I think you can get him for real cheap. And like I said, with Zach Ertz being gone, I think Devonta Smith is also a guy you can try and get on the cheap. And if you have him, you can flex him throughout the bye weeks and everything. And then once the playoffs come, when he's playing Washington twice and the Giants,
Yeah.
He's a guy who I actually have been playing depending on the matchup in DFS. Because he doesn't cost too much, and when he's got a good matchup like against the Chiefs, I picked him up because I thought they're going to be behind the entire game. They have to throw the ball, and they did, and he ended up getting some big passes. He went for 122 yards on 10 targets. So, yeah,
that's money.
Sanders is a guy I would love to see on the Chiefs.
I would love to see Sanders on the Chiefs.
Please don't give them no ideas.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Sanders would easily win that backfield.
Yep.
He'd be the best
back in a defense, and they'd be good.
I wouldn't mind seeing him on Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and I think Fournette's kind of won that backfield over for now. But I think Miles Sanders would be amazing on the Chiefs. I think Miles Sanders could go to probably half the teams in the league and start or be like in Arizona. Miles Sanders in Arizona, he can catch the ball. He would take away from Chase Edmonds and James Conner, but he can catch the ball. He can be a goal line back. That'd be another.
San Francisco wouldn't be a bad team for.
No, San Francisco would be great as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's a guy who they could even end up moving at the trade deadline if Sirianni decides, let's just not run the ball anymore.
That's the real question. Who are we going to be talking about next week? Because after this week, everybody's going to – I think teams are going to sell. I think this might be the best trade deadline for the NFL in a while. Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be some teams that are going to go all in, and there's going to be some teams that are going to be like, hey, I can rebuild.
Yeah, I think the team to watch for the Sanders thing is depending on how long Christian McCaffrey's out for.
Yeah.
If the Panthers think that's going to be a long-term thing, Scott Fitterer has shown I'm in on every deal. So
you're right.
If they're looking to get rid of someone, or anyone's looking to get rid of someone, the Panthers are always going to be in contention, whether it's another corner or anything. So note, start Odell Beckham this week if he plays. Trade for Eagles players now that if you can get Goddard as well now that Ertz is gone, or even if you can get Ertz right now, he's going to go and play for the Cardinals. I think he's going to do amazing in that offense.
He is going to swoop in and take red zone touchdowns.
Yeah,
that's
he will.
If you own even Hopkins and anybody else,
to me, Hopkins coming off a 20-point week, I'm looking to sell high on Hopkins.
Yeah.
I think there's too many mouths to feed in that offense, and I think it's going to be inconsistent going forward because I don't fully trust Kyler Murray to be able to sustain Hopkins, Ertz, Edmonds, Rondale Moore, AJ Green. It just literally can't happen. But I want to thank you guys for
move. With that move, I think Arizona has solidified the NFC West. They are going to win that division. Yeah. Possibly the NFC in general.
Yeah, unless Kyler gets hurt, which I think Kyler could easily get hurt. But
Arizona, real quick, I know we're wrapping this up. Arizona's starting to look like the team. There's always a team that goes like 12-4, or this year, let's say 13-4. And then they get that first playoff game, and it's playoff football. And they just choke.
See, I see them being more like the 2015 Panthers. They have Kyler Murray, who's the mobile quarterback like Cam Newton. The offense is running good. Everyone seems to be happy. And they have the veterans on defense, Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, who can keep that locker room together. So for me, I would kind of compare them more to that team where they surprised everyone. They're going on a run. I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl or anything. I don't think they quite have that much experience, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I think they can make some noise in the playoffs. But like I said, let's wrap things up here. So I want to thank you guys for joining again. And I want to thank everyone who watched. Make sure you guys tune in again next week. And thank you guys. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
All right.